me not to live, just sit and putter. Life's candy and the sun's a ball of butter. Don't bring around a cloud to rain on my parade. Don't tell me not to fly, I've simply got to. If someone takes a spill, it's me and not you. Who told you you're allowed to rain on my parade?
Hello, I'm Silver. It's Monday the 20th of June. It's actually been a busy couple of days in my work life, as I kind of knew it would be, so I don't know why I wasn't anticipating that it would be that crazy, but anyway, I feel like I've been trying to catch up on sleep all day, but I've been kind of sitting here and thinking of recording all weekend, so here I am. Anyway, you didn't come by to hear about anything other than my knitting, so let's get down to it. First off, I do want to say thank you to those that have been hanging out with me from week to week. Your wonderful advice has been awesome and phenomenal, so thank you for that. A grand thank you to newer listeners who may be checking out for the first time. Thank you for coming by to give me a try. I do promise it's not always me whining about my work schedule. A lot of it actually is knitting related. So, what I currently have on the needles, I am working on the Progression Shawl, which is a pattern by Karen, who is Round the Twist with Karen podcast. I'm knitting this on a size US 7, which is a 4.5 millimeter needle, out of the Yowza Skein by Miss Babs. It is the BFF colorway. There are pops of pink and black, and oh, it is phenomenal. And it's awesome to work with. I love the yarn, and the pattern itself is very intuitive. It's actually meant to go to a pretty awesome recipient who I work with, who, like I mentioned last week, she did recently lose her dad, but I recently found out that this week she cannot wait to get this shawl. She seems like she is a very knit-worthy person, so it may just be not just the shawl that I'm making for her. We'll see in the long run. The second thing that I have been working on, I am calling the Rainbow Socks. The pattern on that is the Toe Up Socks with a Difference by Wendy D. Johnson. I'm actually knitting these on two 16-inch circulars. There are two US 2, which is a 2.75 millimeter needle. The yarn is a Lollipop Yarns Beefcake base yarn called Raise the Roof. Oh, it's got little bits of gray. It also has a little bit of rainbow in it, so it's kind of a self-striper. So once you get bored with one color, it's like, oh, hey, there's another one right there, which is what has been making this an easy knit for me. Not only is the pattern intuitive, it also is a lot easier for me to, on busy days, just to pull out and do a couple of stitches here and there, especially during breaks. So it's perfect. It's kind of like a vanilla sock, but with the heel being a little bit more involved, which is kind of what I needed. Let's see. I'm actually currently on the second of that sock. I'll get to the rest of that later. The third thing that I have been knitting on has been a lentilla, which is a pattern by Martina Bem. It is on the Zavril colorway on the Woolwise Pure 100% Merino Superwash yarn. Absolutely love the colors. It's got pops of pink and black, and you can barely tell where one starts and one ends. It is a very well made yarn, and it also knits up awesome. I am knitting the lentilla on a size US 3 3.25 millimeter needles on my 47-inch circular needles by Knitter's Pride Dreams. And mind you, the Dreams has a Z at the end of it, because Z and X's are extreme, according to my husband. I was just going to leave that out there. Wait, what's that sound? Oh, I had a bit of dabbling in the fraud pong this week. Um, I had to rip out a shawl I started for the Mother's Day Mystery KAL back in May. Suffice to say, I thought I had a bright idea to do this KAL on size 4 needles instead of the 6 to the 8s that the pattern called for. I did like the overall fabric I was creating, but the lace was too tight and it was turning out to be a necklet or not definitely not a shawl. The way that I originally was thinking of compensating for the size issue was to go ahead and do a couple more repeats of the main body pattern, but a lot of it ended up doing a lot of math, and overall I was just like, okay, I'm going to rip back and do it on the correct size, and then that way it'll give me more drape. So I decided to go with this size US 8s, which is a 5.0 millimeter needle. I'm knitting this out of the Lucky Violet Color Company Betty base, and the color is Maleficent. It's such a soft yarn to work with. I did not want to not use it right away. Let's just put it that way. It is something that I had never worked out of before. So that's pretty much what made me go ahead and do this KAL. The pattern itself is simply called the Mother's Day KAL by J.L. Fleckenstein. I think that's how you pronounce your last name. I am so sorry. Please let me know if you are actually listening, and I will go ahead and pronounce it right next week. I do promise that. Alright, Stash Dash 2016. I did not finish anything this week. No real FOs that actually count for Stash Dash totals, so my yardage still stands at 3,704 yards. If you're counting in meterage, that's about 3.386, and if you want to be technical, there's a 0.938 at the end of that. Yeah, I do have to count every single meter. Anyway, on to my FOs. I did not finish an entire pair of socks, but I did finish one of the rainbow socks. And now that I've actually gone past the heel on the second one, I have under 10 yards of the contrasting gray yarn that I was using on the heels and toes. And this did come as a package set with the yarn, so I was pretty okay with using both. And I'll have to show you, I literally have 10 yards. It's crazy. I can say that for the first time in my life, I have one bout of yarn chicken. I am very much okay with that. Let's see. And so yeah, that won't count until I finish the second sock. Hopefully I'll finish that within this week. You never know. Let's see. So next up on my list, I do have two specifically that I want to talk about this week. The first one is I finally did make a decision on what color yarn and kind of pattern I wanted to do for the Crazy Sock winner. This last one. The third and final one, I am going to go ahead and do the toe up socks with a difference pattern for her as well, only because it is easier for me to do a pattern that I've already done before and get it done really quickly. And since the first time through this pattern went pretty fast, I'm pretty okay with that. The yarn itself is a Patton's Kroy that you can pretty much buy at any box store, but the colors are pretty awesome and they are the girl's jam. Let's put it that way. I showed her a picture of it and she was very much okay with that color. So I'll go ahead and start that as soon as I loosen up, as soon as I have more needles to go ahead and start those. Because I finally did get her the cutout of her foot as well. So that's pretty much ready to go. The second thing that is up on the needles is to finally finish Mark's black socks. Yeah, I love my husband. I just have come to the agreement, and even with him too, that black socks for him, we need to stop with the black socks. I just have the heels to put in, so I don't know why it took me so long to get it started, but there it is. So if you hear a little bit of back and forth, my cat decided he wanted to come up and join me. Want to say hi, Mario? Hi. I guess it's as much as a hi as you're gonna get. Anyway, we're going to move on to any questions because we actually do have one for Mercury on our Ravelry board. The question is, what are your favorite knitting needles to use? I know you've tried lots of different brands and styles, but I want to know which ones you like the best and why you like them so much. I am always up for trying more needles. Well, Mercury, my answer, it's not an easy answer. I've been thinking about this one since I first saw the question on the board. I'm not sure if I have a specific favorite. I suppose it would really depend if you were talking circular needles versus straight needles. In this case, I do tend to gravitate toward my circulars. I will use straight needles for washcloths, but otherwise, yeah, the circular needles are my jam. Let's see. I do have interchangeable needles from different companies, and I've tried a few of them. But it seems like that when I twist my hands so much as I knit, the cables do tend to unscrew from the needles, which makes my knitting go so much slower because I have to go and, retwist it back in every couple rows or so, and that kind of gets annoying for me. Um, let's see. Anywhere I can get away with doing fixed cables, I do. I've also noticed that if the cable is too stiff, then I'm finding the work. I'm just fighting it, and I go really slow when I knit, and it makes the knit not as pleasurable as it could be. Let's see. The same also goes for the extra floppiness of the dreams needles I've been using, as the cable itself is way too floppy and loose, and sometimes it does tend to get in the way of the work, which also slows me down. You can see I have a speedrunner's mentality where I just want to keep going fast. So that's kind of where my thought comes in, even with my knitting. I've also noticed that my favorite recently have been the red lace cable needles by Chaigu. I've been trying to use them on every project I've been working on, so I'm able to move the cables around to where I need them, and they just bounce right back. I do prefer needles that don't have the bendy ends on the cables, as they tend to be less flexible. What I basically mean is, those ergonomic ones that have a little bend? Yeah, those tend to annoy me more than anything else. Um, I mean, the ones that I do, they're definitely less ergonomic, but the trade-off is they tend to knit faster. So the short answer is going to be a pair that I'll show you a picture of. Mario, seriously, ow! Yeah, claws digging into my legs. Stop. Okay, I'm gonna put him down on the floor now, guys. Sorry. Anyway, so basically, I can tie these needles, in knots essentially, and they just keep bouncing back. I'll show you a picture of that right here. So, what you watching, Silver? Well, let's see. This week I did catch up on most of the podcasts I watch. I also watched a few episodes of Gotham, caught up with The Dead Files, and watched a few movies this week. I did finally get around to watching Brokeback Mountain for the first time. The story is very pretty, and let's just face it, I was bawling by the end. I would recommend the movie to anyone who thinks that love should not have any boundaries. Let's just leave it at that, and you should watch the movie and tell me what you think. I have also been watching MTI stream his Final Fantasy V 4th Job Fiesta live. I'll be leaving a short little clip at the very end of this episode with his explanation of what that is. He can explain it so much better than I can, in which I do apologize. So, what you reading, Silver? Well, let's see. I have been continuing to listen to Wolves of the Kala, which is book 5 of the Dark Tower series by Stephen King. I have just under 11 hours left. It is a freaking amazing story. So I do recommend everyone start from the beginning, and if you have the opportunity, listen to somebody else read the book to you. It makes the story that much better. The other thing I have actually been reading is Affliction by Laurel King Hamilton. I am at about 67% of the book read. I actually just finished reading about a large battle where Anita just pretty much outgunned one of her bodyguards and ends up having to comfort him after the battle is over. It's pretty much how Anita rolls. She has to be the biggest and baddest of them all. But there's also a softer side of her as well, in evidence by her conversations with Jean Claude and a bunch of the other men in her life. And what it comes down to, that now Anita and Jean Claude have actually made some important decisions about their life. So, yeah, I do recommend reading the series. If you do get bored, I do apologize, but it's just kind of my aesthetic when it comes to reading. So. Let's see. I have still been obsessed with watching through the entire Knitmore Girls podcast episodes. I am now at March of 2009, so there are plenty of show episodes for me left to obsess about and watch through. I'm probably going to be mentioning it in weekly obsessions for a while, so just as a heads up. Alright, I am actually pretty social. You can actually find me on our Ravelry board, which is Silver's Dreamland Podcast. I am SilverLuna2112 on Ravelry. On Instagram, I am both Silver's Treats and Silver's Dreamland. On Twitter, I am at Silver's Knitting. I do tend to read through all messages as soon as I possibly can, so if you don't hear from me within 24 hours, please feel free to email me directly at silversdreamland@gmail.com. As always, my show notes can be found at my blog at www.dreamysilver2112.com. I've actually created a category and a page just for the blog. So if you do follow the link, which is called Enter Silver's Dreamland, all my episodes can be found there as well. So that way you don't have to worry about losing one in the grand scheme of all my blog entries. Okay? So, my final thought for this week is actually a quote from Doctor Who. 900 years of time and space, and I've never met anyone who wasn't important. So just remember, if you do happen to work for a large corporation or company, and it doesn't seem like they appreciate your efforts, just remember, you are important, just keep being who you are, and that will always be enough. Anyway, have a great week, everyone.
Something has changed within me. Something is not the same. I'm through with playing by the rules of someone else's game.
Too late for second guessing. Too late to go back to sleep. It's time to trust my instincts. Close my eyes and